Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Box§Cast. I am, of course, Justin, and today I'll be joined by fellow YouTuber and F1 game racer Yorkie. Are you muted?
Sorry, I'm not talking on TeamSpeak. That's why. So I'm recording. I'm talking here, but I'm not doing the thing.
Yes.
That was a fantastic start.
So yes, that's all right. We're just gonna go with it. So Yorkie is joining us today on the back Box$Cast. Miko is on a cruise, actually. And we're going to be talking about the U.S. Grand Prix and hitting on some side topics as well. But mainly, we're going to be talking about the U.S. Grand Prix. So with qualifying, I saw all of qualifying. You said that you didn't see all of qualifying or any of qualifying, but
Nope.
Weber almost beat Vettel. It was really, really close. He was quite a bit ahead, and Vettel was down in sectors 1 and 2, and then somehow magically in sector 3, he found like 7/10 of a second or something, and just barely pipped Weber for pole position. The Ferraris were definitely struggling during qualifying. Hulkenberg did really well. Rosberg struggled. He got knocked out. Perez, he beat Button by actually quite a bit. Button was disappointingly way down in qualifying. He did not do very well. Bottas, though, he shined in qualifying, getting into Q3 for the second time this season. And Kovalainen was looking pretty strong in practice and qualifying, considering that he was, driving a car that wasn't even his and all those sorts of things. And then Maldonado was blocked twice at turn 20 by Charles Pic and Esteban Gutierrez as well. So it was a pretty eventful qualifying, actually.
Yeah, there's quite a few position changes as well. There's a lot of penalties. Obviously, Button got was it 2 or 3 grid place penalty? 'Cause
Three place grid.
Overtook
grid
under
penalty.
red flags in free practice or something like that. I think
Yeah.
it was the first free practice session where they had the fog.
Yes, yeah, it
Which is
was
really unusual.
FP1, and actually that was after the fog had lifted, but the medical helicopter still wasn't there yet. And
Ah,
even Button himself even said, like that was just really dumb, stupid mistake on his part. If you look at the footage, though, Kvyat was in front of him and then like slowed down significantly. So yeah, I don't even really think it was going through Jensen's head that about the red flags or any of that. So that was
yeah,
definitely unfortunate, and there's really nothing they can do about it. That's just kind of like oh, you did it. Here's your here's your penalty for it. Maybe that's something that they could change to just a reprimand. You know how you get the 3 reprimands and then you get
yep,
yeah. Maybe they in the future they can change that sort of thing to a reprimand or something along those lines. But
yeah.
yeah, and then of
I
course
was gonna say,
the other 2 got the penalties, but those weren't as important. The blocking one, because I mean, Charles Pic was going to be in the bottom 4 anyway.
yeah, I think there was a couple of penalties that carried. Actually, no. Nope, ignore that. I was thinking there was a couple of penalties that carried over from the race. Oh yeah, Chilton. Chilton had a penalty. He had a drive through to serve within the first few laps. I
Oh, did
believe
he?
it was. Yeah, from the
Yeah,
previous
I
race.
should mention to you guys that I actually I missed the first few first few dozen laps actually of the race because of a time confusion on my part. What did he do though? What happened?
I cannot remember. I'm not entirely sure what the penalty was for, but basically he had a drive-through penalty to serve within the first few laps of the race, which he did under the safety car conditions. But we should probably get onto that a little bit later once.
Gotcha.
Uh, yeah, once we kind of finished off with qualifying and then obviously gone onto the race a bit more as well.
Right. So yeah, the qualifying actually was pretty exciting. A lot of stuff happened. I got to say, Bottas was the one who really shined there, qualifying in ninth. Actually, I thought he qualified in eighth, so that was my confusion. But yeah, he
Yeah, Heike
qualified
was
in
in eighth.
ninth. Yep, Heikki in eighth, which actually a good showing from him as well. Really impressive that
Yep.
he could just jump in the car like that and put in those types of laps. And those are some big shoes to fill. Kimi is one of the best, definitely one of the top 5 best drivers on the grid this year, and for Heikki to come in and even get into Q3 was quite impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Hulkenberg was also a standout one for me as well, getting fourth, Pippin, Hamilton, and also Alonso. That was pretty impressive. Although obviously with Ferrari's form in qualifying, they're not overly great. How Alonso being around sixth, seventh, eighth sort of mark is his usual position,
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
throughout most of this season.
yeah.
They really need to sort out that car for qualifying.
Yeah, I mean he's really outperforming that car as he normally does. He usually outperforms that car like crazy. If you put any other driver in that car, I'm not so sure they even would have made it to Q3. Never mind qualifying on the third row of the grid. It's pretty amazing what he's able to do with that car in those conditions. The track was evolving a lot though during qualifying, which is part of the reason that made it pretty interesting. The track temperature kept going up and down by just a couple degrees Celsius, but it made all the difference for like the Williams, for instance, and possibly the Mercedes as well.
Yeah, apparently the McLarens were having a lot easier time as well with their time management because we all know that they're relatively easy on the tires, or they don't really generate enough heat, so
Right.
they could find it hard to get that one lap performance out. But apparently they said it was a little bit better, or at least Perez did, who did qualify in seventh. So that's not a too bad result
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
the people ahead of him in qualifying are, kind of the usual suspects, except for
yeah,
Hulkenberg. Alonso, Hamilton, Grosjean, and the Red Bulls, you would expect to qualify ahead of McLaren, especially with Perez in it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Nico Rosberg as well. What actually happened to Rosberg?
Uh,
He qualified 14th.
Q2, it
And
was
then
real
to
hot.
Greg.
It was real hot. That's what I remember. And I actually remember just qualifying in general. The drivers were complaining massively about the difference in the track. I think they said between FP3 and qualifying, there was a lot of wind happening, and it blew a lot
Yeah,
of dust onto the track, and the track was heating up more as well. And a lot of drivers were actually, complaining to their engineers, saying, "What did you do to my car? Why is it so bad now when it was amazing 2 hours ago? What did you do?" But it was actually just the conditions that were causing that, and I believe. They interviewed Ross Brawn while he was on the pit wall, and he was expressing Rosberg's frustrations with the track evolution, and he really wasn't comfortable with the way it was in I think Q1 or Q2. Yeah, Q1. His time was a 38.7. Q2, he was able to improve that to a 38.3, but unfortunately, that wasn't enough to get into Q3.
yeah, that's quite surprising. Although they did say at the start of the race, or at least Martin Brundle did on the Sky coverage, he said that the cars really had to be dialed in for each session individually rather than across the entire weekend, because obviously the track constantly changing. But at least I'm guessing they didn't have the problems that they had last year, where they had a completely green track and there was like no grip at all.
Yeah,
But cars are just flying off.
Anthony Davidson even commented on that because he raced at Circuit of the Americas for the World Endurance Championship. So at some
Yeah,
point during the weekend, he was commenting on how much the track has improved from last year, and it really has, and it really it spiced things up a lot as well. The track definitely was a lot better this year than it was last year. I just wish that they had maybe brought a little bit more aggressive tires.
yeah, definitely the tyres were a little bit too conservative. The Pirelli tyres and their choices have been very much hit and miss this season, and it seems like most of the really big, exciting races, kind of like Spa
Hmm.
and Monza and a couple of others, haven't really been all that exciting or as great as they should have been. And the fact that this year with the Circuit of the Americas, I remember you saying before we went live that they actually did. Circuit of Americas last year was the least amount of pit stops for any race across the entire season, and then this is probably going to be the same again this year, with most cars only one stopping during the race.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, last
I think
year there were
Pirelli need to
24
go.
cars and 24 pit stops. That's it, every single car last year. So I mean, you could argue that they did improve the compound a little bit this year, but still, I think their choices were too conservative.
Yeah, yeah, should have gone more aggressive.
Yeah,
It
most
probably would have
races
had.
this season have been 2 or 3 stops, and this one was mostly one with a few 2 stops. So I mean, it just felt like a very different Formula One race versus other races this season.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So
It
yeah,
seemed a bit more of a possession. There wasn't all too much
Yeah, yeah. I think it
There
can
was
be
over.
improved.
Yeah, yeah, there was overtaking, but it was kind of more just dive down the inside, go dive down the outside or whatever, and the move is pretty much done. There was no real wheel to wheel battles, as
Yeah.
it were, apart from earlier on Rosberg made an overtake in the fairly early laps. I think it was on Duresta
Hmm.
or something like that. They kind of went wheel to wheel for a couple of corners, and that was all right. But other than that, nothing,
And speaking of
nothing
wheel to
on
wheel,
the edge of the seat.
Maldonado and Sutil went wheel to wheel in the very first lap.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
I saw the SkyPad slow motion coverage with Anthony Davidson on that. I assume you did as well.
No, I didn't
Oh, okay.
actually. I didn't see the
Well, he's slowed it
previous
down,
stuff.
and I mean it's very clear that Maldonado was holding his line, and Sutil very intentionally moved to the left. They said that Sutil afterwards said that he knew that Maldonado was there. So I'm not 100% sure what that means, but it seems like just a really stupid mistake on his part, unfortunately. Um, I,
Yeah,
I don't know why anyone would try to squeeze Maldonado at this point, knowing his history with people going wheel to wheel in the past. So it seemed maybe he was frustrated. He did get knocked out in Q1, so he might have been just really not in a great place at the start of this race. He might have been looking to make up as many positions as possible. But I mean they were side by side. I don't really see the benefit even of turning into Maldonado on a long straight like that.
yeah. I don't know. I didn't see all the intricacies of the incident. Obviously, I saw it obviously live on when it happened. And they showed a couple of replays off board of the crash as well. But I think Brundle did say at the time when they were looking back through the replays whilst the race was actually happening and it was under safety car conditions because the safety car was brought out after that because the car was kind of it was off to the side of the track but it was down the long straight and kind of in an awkward position
Right.
for the marshals. So they brought the safety car back out and whilst they were doing that they showed a couple of replays and yeah, Brundle did say it did look like it was more Sutil's fault than Maldonado's. Um, so yeah, I can't really. Obviously, you want to try and defend your position hard, and he probably was expecting Maldonado to move over.
Hmm.
I think Sutil was probably trying to aim to squeeze Maldonado over into the inside of the track to make it tighter down at the hairpin for him.
Yeah, compromise his
However,
line at turn 12.
yeah, but obviously Maldonado didn't have that same thought process and just carried on in a straight line, and Sutil just went into the side of him.
Yeah, I think Maldonado has even less to lose nowadays than he has in the past. So yeah, I just think it wasn't a great idea for him to even tangle with Maldonado. There's literally almost anyone on the grid would have been a better choice than Maldonado as far as trying to pull that type of move on him.
Yeah,
But the start of the race, which I did miss, but I did see the replays of good start from both Red Bulls. Actually, Weber pretty much had an identical start to Vettel. Their gap at the start going into turn one was pretty much the exact same gap that it was when they took off the line. But it looked like most people were getting a huge benefit by actually going around the outside of turn one. At the inside of the corner, there was a bit of like a traffic jam type effect which allowed a whole bunch of people to gain positions around the outside of that corner.
yeah. I remember them saying in a interview. I think it was Weber on the podium at the end there. He was saying that I watched all the footage back from last year and seeing that the quickest way into turn one to gain the most places on the first lap was to go around the outside of that hairpin, which a lot of people opted to do. I actually think Weber had a pretty poor phase one on the start. He got a
Hmm.
fair bit of wheel spin, but he brought it back in phase two and was actually starting to close up on Vettel. But obviously Vettel shut the door and yeah, he got squeezed over onto the inside. Grosjean pretty much went straight to the outside of both the Red Bulls, and then
Hamilton
it was a,
followed right behind his.
yeah, Hamilton was going around the outside of Hulkenberg, and then was it Perez around the outside of Alonso? I think it was.
Yep, sure was.
Yep, yeah, did get that right.
So yeah, definitely an interesting start. At a lot of these tracks, people like to have the inside line going into the first corner. So that's a bit of a strange one where actually being on the outside was the benefit. And you could actually see at the start that Alonso was aiming for the outside of the track. That's where he wanted to be. But Perez actually got a surprisingly good start, and he was right up alongside Alonso before they even got into the braking for turn one.
Yeah, Alonso surprised me at the start. He didn't get the start that he usually does. He usually gains places on the first lap, but he lost
I think one position.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, one position.
Yeah, but that's
Uh,
uncharacteristic of him for sure. I mean, starts are probably his number one feature or one of them.
yeah, yeah. He's well known for his starts. A couple of like Monza last year, Barcelona as well, and a few others where he just fully Kers abuses it down to turn one. It's mainly places with a long run down to turn one. And yeah, the Circuit of the Americas is a relatively decent one. I wouldn't say it's the longest, but it's still quite a good length
Yeah, they're probably getting into
down to the
fifth
first corner.
gear, I would imagine, at least maybe 120,
Yeah,
140 miles an hour, something like that.
yeah, probably around that sort of speed. But yeah, it's good to see no one obviously making any contact as well, because it's quite a difficult turn one as well
It is.
with the rise up the hill and then the apex up at the crest.
I'm surprised we didn't see more people going three wide. Actually, when I was watching the replay, I was fully expecting to see that a lot of people went three wide into the corner, just like the corner before the DRS straight, the back straight as well. It
Yeah,
opens up really big, kind of like the corner at the end of the DRS straight in India. You could probably go four or five cars wide through there if you really wanted to. You just have that much space. But they pretty much went two by two. I think there was a little bit of three wide action going on towards the tail end of the grid, back like where Massa was. I think there was some minor contact. But for the most part, at least the top 10 or 12 people were just going two by two through it.
yeah. That's obviously the safest way to go through there.
And it is a track where you can pass people. It's not all that it's not horrendous when it comes to that sort of thing. So if you've got the pure pace, it's better to, and Alonso proved this. It's better to just lose out the position at the start and just get it back later on if you know that you got the pace to do it.
Yeah. Strategy as well, of course.
Right. And now with how long was the safety car out? And do you think that's what might have made the difference between everyone having the two stop versus a one stop if it wasn't for that safety car?
Um, the safety car was out for 5 laps. Obviously, it came out at the end of lap one. I think it went in at lap five or lap six. Um, whether it really affected the strategy all that much? For most people, probably not. I mean, I'm not sure what their reference points was or what data they managed to collect from the free practice sessions as to how far they could actually go. So when it came to lap 20, I think it was lap 24 that we saw the first of the front runners really pit, which I think was, I believe it was Webber
Hmm.
to undercut Hamilton. Yeah, it's quite surprising to see that was obviously the first and to be the only stop that they made. Tyres did start falling off towards the end. I think Alonso's tyres were starting to get rather pretty badly shot up
Hmm.
when he was trying to defend. Was it defending from Hulkenberg? I think it was.
I think
Oh
so.
no, I tried. Yeah, it was defending from Hulkenberg. Uh, yeah, he was looking a little bit worse for wear there, but otherwise, I don't think it really would have. Obviously, people would have just been that little bit slower through corners throughout the stint and trying to preserve their tyres that way. I think if anything, it allowed them to push a little bit harder, but obviously not much.
Yeah, yeah. I think they needed to bring the soft tires. I think if they had brought soft and hard, even that would have been a two-stop. Certainly, though, if they had done soft and medium, I'm hoping that's something that they consider for next year. I know they did the compound change, so they thought maybe that was going to be enough to warrant it being a two-stop race with the same level of tires, the hard and the medium. But clearly that wasn't the case. So hopefully they learned their lesson this time and maybe bring a little bit more exciting combination for next year.
Yeah, what What tires did they run last year in 2012?
Same ones, medium and hard. And I remember last year actually it was extremely cold. And during FP1, they're on a brand new track. It's extremely cold, and they're
Yeah.
running the hardest compound tires. So last year people were just going right off the track at turn 19. Which is a high-speed third or fourth gear corner in Sector 3, and we did see a little bit of that this year as well. But it was improved over last year, but not enough. I think again they were too conservative. It's too conservative. They knew that they needed to improve over last year because last year was absolutely boring when it came to strategy. But I don't think they improved enough. They need to be aiming for the 2 to 3 stop strategy. That's kind of what their aim has been all year, and I think for last year too as well. I think their goal is to get a variety of 2 and 3 stop races. So when you get most people doing a 1 stop with a couple of 2 stops, clearly that's not the target that they were looking for. So hopefully, again, they can improve that and bring a little bit better combo. I think soft medium, soft hard, maybe even super soft and medium. That combination, that's what they used for Korea, I believe, this year, or was it Singapore? But the super soft and medium combo, even, I think, would be a lot more exciting than the hard and the medium.
Yeah, well, obviously we changed the construction back from obviously early 2013 back to 2012 as well, so that probably would have had a big play. If we had the same sort of tyres that we had at the start of the 2013 season, obviously people would have been pitting a lot more, even with the same, the medium and the hard tyres that they're running now. But I think when we went back to the 2012 construction, we lost that variety in strategy.
I think you're right actually, because yeah, it used to be the Kevlar belt at the start of the season, or no, it was the steel belt at the start of the season, and then they went back to the Kevlar belt. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if they made the decision on the tires for the U.S. Grand Prix before or after that, though. I'm honestly not sure. So, but yeah, I think for sure, yeah, if they had been using the earlier spec tires with medium and hard, then that probably would have been a 2 stop race for most people.
yeah, I would have thought so as well. One thing that we did see though, which was actually rather cool, last year we had the cars running off, which kind of made it exciting. Is I didn't actually obviously didn't see free practice, but I watched the pre-race show of today's race, and they were showing, I can't remember the name of it. It was like VT or YTT10 Vortex thing,
Hmm.
mid jiggy. Yeah, it was basically where the where it was quite cold. You could actually see the vortexes of air coming off the front wings, spiraling around underneath the car, and they compared the vortexes of air coming off the Red Bull and the Ferrari, and the Red Bull's vortex was actually quite clean spiral pattern,
Hmm.
and which went down towards the underside of the side pods, which will have, of course,
Interesting.
got run around under the side of the car there. But the Ferrari, it was a lot looser and more flailing all over the place, and then
Hmm.
it hit it's one of the little, I don't know, it's like a little sideboard or something just at the start of the side pod,
I think I know
just
what you
kind
mean.
of a little fairing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hitting that, and it was just basically dispersing the vortex air all over the place, and just kind of, it didn't have that smooth aerodynamic flow that the Red Bull had, and I'm guessing that is where a lot of the performance that the Red Bull currently have is coming from. Obviously, Adrian Newey is a aerodynamics genius, so
Yeah.
pretty much any team that he walks into, they're within a couple of years are going to be towards the top end of the field.
That's interesting. I did see that they had that comparison, but I never did actually take a look at it. I'll have to check that out later. But that's extremely. I mean, that's got to be big insight for the teams as well. We think it's cool
Yeah,
as fans, but you just know that there are probably a few hundred F1 employees right now. Back at the trucks in Austin somewhere, just going through all of this footage and just analyzing every little bit that they can to try and find improvements. If not for this year, then definitely at least for next year.
yeah. I could just imagine all the aerodynamics just kind of sat there watching this footage, the little pen that they've got, just drops and hit the floor, and they're probably there bashing their heads on the desk, thinking, "How the hell did we not kind of get this?" And look at that. But yeah, it was like from a fan's point of view, it was really really cool to see that effect, because obviously we can't actually see the airflow of all the aerodynamical parts. Like, yeah, you could see probably the heat coming out the back of the car through slow motion and things like that, but seeing those vortex rings coming off the front wing and kind of running along the underside of the nose cone, coming towards the center of the car, and the different effects that it had on a different car as well was very cool to see. And yeah, big insight as to where their performance is coming from and just how clean the aerodynamics on that Red Bull is.
Yeah, I think it's about efficiency for Red Bull. You know, they might have the exact same amount of wing, but they're just, you know, they're using the space that they have more effectively than the other teams. So I think that's how you get that more refined look on it. And speaking of aerodynamics, the Williams pace seems to have improved ever since they dropped the Coanda effect on their exhaust, and it seems to have done wonders for Bottas, at least, if not Maldonado. He got his first points today, and got into Q3 as well for the second time, as I mentioned before. So that Williams, if it's not actually faster, it at least seems more drivable.
Yeah, I remember I watched an interview after the race as well with Bottas, and he said that he was a lot happier once the Coanda exhausts were put onto the car. Um, I think Sauber might have done the similar thing as well. I'm not sure. I think it was the floor for Sauber actually, or something. But yeah, basically Sauber have picked up their game as well for the second half of the season, as you can see with Hulkenberg really providing some fantastic results and really kind of proving himself. A lot of people are saying that, you know, he's going to be hopefully the next star in F1, and if he keeps putting in those performances, both qualifying and race, that he's doing at the moment, I can definitely agree with that. And he seems like he's, well, I'm hoping he's going to be a go to Lotus soon, just to, you know, really show us what he can do.
Absolutely.
And Bottas as well. Martin Brundle said that he's a star for the future and one to watch as well. And I'll agree with that, actually. He's shown some very promising signs, especially as it's his first rookie season, and he's got himself a seat at Williams for next season as well. I'm pretty sure that's confirmed. I'm not
Yeah,
100%,
I believe that is confirmed. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So he's got himself a seat alongside Massa. Obviously, Massa's going to be able to teach him a whole bunch of tools and tricks and all sorts of things to improve his game. So hopefully Bottas will be able to take what he's learned from this first season, what Massa will be telling him next season, and then, you know, kind of really bringing that all together and really refining his racecraft, and then kind of, you know, showcasing that to the world.
Yeah.
In 2014.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Hulkenberg and Grosjean would be an extremely exciting pairing if that happened.
Oh yeah.
They're both for sure rising stars. It's only a matter of time before Grosjean gets his win. You know, he could have gotten it this year if it wasn't for Vettel's dominance. And Hulkenberg even as well. I mean, he probably should have gotten a podium at some point this year if it wasn't for the car. The 2013 Sauber definitely not as good as the 2012 Sauber. 2012 Sauber was actually quite an amazing car considering that they're a midfield team and all of that. The 2013 Sauber, I think they tried a little bit. They tried a lot of crazy stuff. To try and make things pretty or improve things. They took some gambles and they didn't all work out, but it's definitely been coming back to them at the end of the season now. And Hulkenberg, like you said, he's really been proving to everyone. But it's been no surprise, honestly. You know, everyone has really rated Hulkenberg very highly for almost all of his career. People have been talking about how good he is and all this sort of thing. And he keeps proving it. He keeps proving everyone right that he is in fact amazing, and you know, he could very well be a future champion, if not at the very least a future champion contender for sure. And I hope that he either gets the Lotus seat or stays at Sauber. That's my hope for Nico. I hope he doesn't have to resort to going back to Force India. I think Sauber will be the better team next year in the fight against Force India. They're kind of like rivals at this point, and I think Sauber might have the upper hand next year. Of course, that also depends if they get to keep Hulkenberg, and if they do, who's going to partner him. All that will have an effect on it, of course, as well. Um,
Yeah. Um, I'm hoping he gets that Lotus seat next year.
yeah.
Apparently, it's all down to this quantum deal that Lotus are going to be hooking up.
Hmm.
Apparently, it was between Maldonado and Hulkenberg. And obviously, if they did get the deal, then Hulkenberg would be their first pick. However, if they didn't get it, obviously Maldonado, with all that financial backing that he's got with the oil company, will probably end up taking the seat. I hope it doesn't go that way, because talent really does need to come over
Yeah.
pay drivers. I'm actually getting fed up of
Especially at that end of the
people.
grid. You're talking about
Yeah.
a race-winning team. We're not talking about Caterham or Williams or something like that. We're talking about one of the top four, maybe one of the top three, depending on who you ask. But certainly one of the top four teams on the grid. They really shouldn't have to resort to pay drivers.
Yeah, definitely. Although obviously, Lotus seem to have a constant financial issue. Last year, Raikkonen didn't get paid until the end of the season. Apparently, Raikkonen's only just got paid, maybe now.
Yeah.
I think with only 2 races to go. There was talk of him boycotting the last couple of races, but that's all redundant now that he's gone for back surgery.
Right.
So he's missing the last 2 races anyway. I'm wondering what's actually going to happen to Paul di Resta. There's quite a few different driver changes that could potentially happen, and also some very exciting lineups as well. Like obviously you got Raikkonen and Alonso.
Yep.
Ricciardo and Vettel are set to go. It'll be interesting to see how Ricciardo does.
I'm excited about
especially earlier in the season.
Bottas and Massa as well. I think that's a really exciting combo as well.
Yeah, I think 2014 is just going to be a nice clean sweep of the sheet and just reset everything. And I reckon we could see some very big surprises. Maybe a middle team like jumping all the way through the ranks to becoming potentially a race-winning car. And
I'm hoping Williams.
Top teams dropping even further back.
I've never been a giant Williams fan, but you have to respect their history and the struggles that they've been going through recently as well. So I'd really like, as much as I love Sauber, I would really like to see Williams make a big jump to at least get back in the mix. They were battling for points last year. They were battling with Sauber and Force India and maybe even the Mercedes sometimes last year, because the Mercedes wasn't so great. But I mean, this year they're somewhere in between Toro Rosso and Caterham. They're kind of in this no man's land where they're really, or in the past, before, this race was a little bit different, but they were kind of just in this no man's land where it was pretty much impossible for them to even get points, and they just had a whole bunch of problems with the wheels falling off and stuff like that. So I would really like to see a revival of Williams. I think that, especially with their new driver lineup for next year.
Yeah, that should be good. Obviously, Massa coming to the team, like I said earlier on, it'll be a great benefit to them and can really, hopefully, push the car in the right direction.
I'm hoping Smedley goes with them, too. I think that would be super helpful for Williams as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Smedley, I enjoy listening to Rob Smedley on the when he does his little pits stuff.
Yeah,
he's
possibly the best engineer and driver combo in history.
Yeah, probably. Although Massa doesn't really talk back much, which is with a little bit of shame. Really nice to see some banter there. But yeah, Smedley's a cool guy. I hope he does go as well. What was I going to say before that I was just thinking of? Oh yeah, I did originally want. Was it if Hulkenberg was to go to Lotus, Massa was going to go to Sauber, and Massa could do Sauber some good there and help them push even further. But obviously that's not happening. Now that was my hope prior to the Massa deal becoming public.
Yeah, I think either of those would have been a good place for him. I think Sauber would have been good. I think, it's hard for me to even choose which one I like better. But I think either one of those are fantastic. I was worried that he would kind of look down on Williams, maybe a bit more than Sauber. Sauber had several podiums last year, something like four podiums out of 20 races, three with Perez, one with Kamui, and Williams just had, I believe, the one win last year. I don't think they had any podiums beside that, and they've really been struggling this year. So I was a bit concerned that Massa might kind of, because he was saying that he wanted, he wanted a nice car, and the 2013 Williams has not been a nice car. So I thought he might actually kind of snub his nose at the Williams team, but I'm glad that he sees the potential. He knows that they're in a rut, but it's only going to last for so long. It's only a matter of time before they bring themselves back into contention. Excuse me, I think Claire Williams actually did say also that Massa was the first of several announcements involved with the Williams F1 team. So I think that could be a hint that Smedley is in fact going to be coming, and possibly some other talents as well. So hopefully we will be seeing that actual revival of Williams. And like you were saying with the rest, he might be in danger, but I think Sutil as well could be in danger. We may see a whole new lineup entirely for Force India next year.
Yeah, quite potentially. Apparently, there's some rumours that Di Resta is going to IndyCar next year. Obviously, he's got the option to go back to DTM as well, probably.
Yep.
Because he's won a championship or two there, which is, of course, where he originally came from. I'm hoping... I don't want the Force India lineup to change too much. I see them as a very consistent team, and they kind of tend to stick with what they know on a year-by-year basis. Like, the driver lineup has been very similar.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the change last year with Sutil from, I believe it was Hulkenberg.
And I mean,
but other than that,
who would you choose out of the two this year? If you were going to keep one of the two Force India drivers, would it be Sutil or Di Resta?
I don't know. That's a really tough question. Obviously, loyalty and patriotism makes me want to go to Di Resta, but he had a good start to the season, but he had a spike of about 3 or 4 races where there were driver errors, and which obviously put him into retirement for the race, which I don't know. He hasn't really had the results this half of the season.
I'll say this though, if you just look on paper at their current point situation, even factoring in all the bad luck that Paul's had, he's ahead of Sutil by 19 points. I mean, he's got almost double the points of Sutil.
Okay, I wasn't looking at that statistic.
Yeah, I mean,
but
he's got most of. Yeah, I didn't realize it either until like a week or two ago. Someone brought it up, I think, possibly on Sky F1. But yeah, he's got most of Force India's points in spite of all those things that have happened to him. So I would say that probably Di Resta would be the one that they pick. But as you said, a lot of times people look at what's happened recently, and it hasn't been a great past couple of months for Paul Di Resta.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Sorry, I just dropped a bottle cap and it made a noise. But yeah, I'd agree with that. I thought he was going to have a promising race with this one today as well. However, I've actually lost his race results. So I bring it back up, and he finished 15th, and Sutil was retiree. So yeah, I don't know. It's quite a tough one because yeah, like we said, he has not really been pulling it out of the bag. I think at the start of the season, with the 2013 construction of the tyres, I think it was all down to the tyres. Everything has just mixed everything up. Pretty much a lot of people have been having good results in the first half of the season, and then once they swapped over to the new tyres, they haven't been doing so great in the second half. And it's the reverse of that for the other half of the grid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Force India were doing great at the start, aren't doing so great now. Sauber weren't doing great at the start, but are doing great now. So
and
I
think Sauber and Force India are the two big question marks actually because I don't think either of those teams has confirmed either driver's seat actually. So I think those are the ones that have the biggest question mark above them. Who's going to be driving for them.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think it's those. I think those two teams that hold the key. Lotus as well with that second driver's seat,
Definitely.
and those other driver positions there. Um, I don't know if we're going to be seeing any new drivers come in the bottom two teams with Marussia and Caterham. I'm not too entirely sure what's happening with them. I'm pretty sure Charles Pick has been confirmed for a 2014 seat in Caterham, I think. But other than that, we haven't heard anything else as of yet.
Interesting. Actually, I didn't know about that. If he had been confirmed or not. I think I can look this up quickly enough. Nope, I couldn't.
Pretty sure he has.
Ah, yes, here we go. Caterham. Yes, Charles Pick has been confirmed already.
Yep.
So actually, whoever partners him, that's what's up for debate. Actually, Alex Rossi, of course, the American GP2 race winner and Rookie of the Year from GP2. He did drive the Caterham car for Guido van der Garde during FP1 this weekend, and he was faster than Charles Pic. And this was his first time ever racing this course, and he was actually faster than Charles Pic. So I had originally, a few weeks ago, I said Alex Rossi would probably be in an F1 car for 2015. But I'm starting to think that he might actually be in play for 2014 for next year rather than 2015. Just because he does seem to have pace. He did win a race for the Caterham GP2 team, and he did also get Rookie of the Year, like I said, and got pole position. So he's done quite well for them. He seems to be faster than Charles Pic, at least at Circuit of the Americas. Part of that could be, just being cheered on by the home crowd and whatnot. But I'm not sure what his financial situation is like. Caterham is a team that I believe both their drivers are pay drivers. So I think if Alex Rossi actually brings some money, we could potentially see him in F1 next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, Caterham and Marussia are battling over that 10th place where they get that extra little bit of money for the constructors at the end of the season. I know Caterham got it last year.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that would have helped them. And then, yeah, two paid drivers would have been great for them as well. Hopefully we don't see either of those two teams drop next season, especially Marussia. Obviously HRT went last year. I think the grid is kind of it's a decent size, but I do quite like 24 cars.
Same
on the track.
I miss 24, but I really don't want it to get any smaller than it is now. 22 is as small as I want to see it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And plus, it means there's only one loser in the end. There's only one team that doesn't get that money. So it does kind of make that 10th place battle exciting. If we were to lose Marussia, for example, like who would we even compare Caterham to? It would just be like two separate races, basically. The top 9 teams and then Caterham. So yeah, I hope they both stick around. To my knowledge, they will be sticking around. Marussia has the 10th place position right now, right? Because of Jules Bianchi's finish in Malaysia, I think it was, or China.
I'm not too sure which Grand Prix it was, but I think it was 13th or something like that was the position that he got.
I believe so. Yeah, 13th. Now I don't know if you know this. I'm I don't know the answer to this or not. What happens if Caterham gets 13th? Do they then just compare their second best results to each other, or what happens after that?
I'm pretty sure it works something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's the results afterwards that kind of
next best result, basically.
Go out through the season. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that works how it is. But the thing is with those back end teams as well, something that I was just thinking of that you kind of mentioned with obviously if Marussia goes, Caterham's got no one to race with. We've hardly seen any of Caterham or Marussia racing like wheel to wheel this year, apart from the odd replay here or there, or when they're on screen when the leaders are lapping them.
Right. I think they were closer at the start of this season, and then Caterham started to pull away.
Okay, but yeah, I think last year's last season we actually saw a little bit more racing. Because obviously those six cars battling it out rather than just the four,
Right.
and obviously there was a little bit more of a reason to go back and look at those teams to see what they're actually doing. But you don't really hear much about Caterham or Russia at all throughout pretty much any of the races throughout the season. So it makes it even harder for you know them to get money because their sponsors on the cars aren't getting TV time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That makes things pretty difficult for them, certainly. Of course, Marussia will have the Ferrari power plant next year, and there is going to be a giant shakeup in the regulations as well. I'm really hoping that that will help both of those teams to move a little bit closer to the midfield. It would be nice if they were at least battling with them. They don't necessarily have to be beating them on occasion, but if they were at least just a little bit closer, it would be very nice to see, certainly.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. The difference between the top teams and the bottom teams it's very much night and day. Obviously, it's pretty apparent in the Circuit of Americas in Sector One where you've got the tight. Well, it's not really tight, but the twisty S's section.
Yeah, lots of changes of direction.
Yeah, the downforce between the cars really, really, really shows. I don't know. You were at free practice 1 and 2. I don't know whether you actually heard the difference between the cars, like on and off throttle.
Oh yeah. Well, the big difference that I heard, when I was watching some stuff later on, they were talking about how the Williams sounds different because of them dropping the Commander exhaust. But I never specifically listened for that, unfortunately. But you can't help but notice how the Red Bull sounds. And actually, I did find out later on that apparently the Red Bull sounds even more aggressive at this track than it had at previous races. But it's got this really, really aggressive kind of popping sound that it had to it, and I mean, it sounded mean and just angry. It wasn't that kind of fluid, perfected machine type of thing that you would expect. It just had all these funny notes and stuff happening to it, and it just sounded completely crazy. I mean, especially when you hear them downshifting, like going into turn one, it's just
Definitely.
extremely aggressive sounding.
Yeah, I mean, I went a couple of years ago, back in 2011, with a mate, and we were sat in the. This was at Silverstone. We were sat at the entrance to Abbey Turn One, on the obviously the new format of Silverstone. We did that in qualifying, and most of the top teams, Red Bull, McLaren, and I think Ferrari as well, were pretty much flat out through turn one, whereas the Caterham and the Marussia and the HRT were a lift off and an actual downshift as well going into that corner. But yeah, the sound is what really, really makes it when you go to
Yeah.
alive actually being there at the track, because obviously that doesn't really carry across TV. You could Your senses just go into overdrive, and you can feel all the hairs standing up on your end, and it's stupidly loud.
Exactly.
I know you can almost feel like the downshift and the upshift through the floor. It's really, really powerful.
You could actually feel the
crazy.
vibrations. We were just sitting on
Yeah.
grass. Like, we weren't even sitting on a grandstand. We were just sitting on grass, and you could feel the vibrations coming through the grass, even when the cars were 100, 200 feet away. It's certainly a worry for next year, since they're going to be running smaller engines and with less cylinders, and with of course also the turbo, and lower RPM as well. I think they're limited to 15,000 RPM next year. But I fully intend on going back next year. I had an absolutely amazing time. I'm going to try and go to the race next year if I can, but even just going to the practice sessions was absolutely amazing. I've been watching these guys on TV for over a year and a half now, and it was just absolutely amazing to see Lewis Hamilton driving in front of me, not 100 feet away. I could hit him with a ball or something if I could throw at 180 miles an hour. It was just I was super geeked the whole time, and I just had a huge smile on my face. It was absolutely amazing. But yeah,
Yeah.
I can't wait to go back, and I hope the sound doesn't get muffled too much.
I'm thinking obviously where we've got the turbo, I'm starting to think we could be seeing some anti-lag systems, which obviously are pretty well known in rally cars, which creates all the popping and everything when you're off throttle,
Yep.
sort of thing, which is basically all the fuel just getting thrown into the exhaust to try and keep the fans of the turbo spinning.
Actually, they're going to be
Obviously,
using.
so they're
Going to be using the TERS, the thermal energy recovery system. They're going to be using that to reduce the turbo lag.
Okay.
So there'll still be the popping, but it probably won't be, from gasoline. It'll actually just be from thermal energy.
Yeah. See, I was hoping kind of, pops and bangs, kind of like the blown diffusers that we had back in early 2011 and late 2011.
One last topic I want to hit on before we close this out. Someone that I was talking to not too long ago mentioned that Audi is a company with a rich racing heritage, and they were talking about the possibility of maybe Audi returning to F1 now that we're using turbo V6 engines for next year. What do you think about the idea of that happening?
I have not heard of that before, and that sounds actually quite interesting as well.
I mean, they're extremely dominant in a lot of the different categories that they race in. Certainly, the World Endurance Championship, they're extremely dominant. Their main competitor is, I think, Toyota, and they're just they're always beating Toyota for the most part. So hopefully, maybe we'll see something like that happen now that the engines for F1 from now on from here going forward are going to be a little bit more relevant to a company like Audi.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. This whole, what's this, EF1 or whatever, electronic F1 that's
Formula E
coming as well.
Formula E.
Formula E, that's it. Yeah. We could possibly see them actually come into that first and kind of see that as maybe their testing ground. Hopefully Formula 1 itself doesn't actually go towards Formula E.
Right.
It'd be nice to have both an actual electronic version and petrol.
Agreed.
Sort of thing. Because obviously it's pushing the technology of road cars, what we see every day. That's the whole idea of shifting from V8s to V6s. Because they've learned pretty much everything they could about the V8. So now going back to a V6, which is a lot more relevant to the likes of me and you who drive, your standard everyday car from work and back.
Absolutely.
We could see a whole host of new technologies and, hopefully some more fuel efficiency and other stuff.
Yeah.
Because petrol is ridiculously expensive, especially here in the UK. I don't know what it's like for you.
It's not nearly as bad in America. The problem is, though, you got to do a currency conversion and also a British gallon to American gallon conversion as well. So it starts getting really messy when you try and figure out exactly, but it is a lot cheaper here for sure. But yeah, I completely agree. I'd like to see Formula E and Formula 1 stay separate. Formula E totally interests me, and that would be totally awesome if Audi got into either of the Formula E or Formula 1. But yeah, we like Formula 1 the way it is. And I think if it was ever going to go fully electric, I think that's way down the road, like 100 years from now. I think they'll be sticking with the gas-powered engines for a while.
I definitely hope so. And yeah, like you said, the inclusion of Audi would be interesting. It would be good to see some other cars coming in as well. It'd be nice to see Toyota come back.
Yeah, of course, Honda's coming back as just an engine manufacturer for 2015.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping they're going to kind of lead the way for all these other consumer car companies to get back into F1. If Audi sees Honda selling a lot more Civics because they're in F1, then that might actually be something that appeals to them.
And obviously, Audi make decent road cars as it is, so, and they do some really good technology stuff with cars as well. Obviously, they got the Quattro 4x4 system that they have in a large number of their models that they're currently selling.
They're big on technology, and that's what F1's all about.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of appeal there, and some very promising and interesting things from the future. A lot of unknowns, obviously.
Yeah, 2014 should be an extremely exciting season. I certainly hope so anyway.
Yeah, hopefully a lot better than this one.
I don't think it could be too much worse.
Yeah. I almost fell asleep watching the race, although I was drinking. A couple of beers obviously makes you a little bit tired as well, but it's a lot of the races in the especially the latter half of the season, haven't been
Yeah,
great. Especially the big ones like Spa and
like the
Monza.
last 8 races have been pretty boring.
Yeah, yeah. See, Circuit of Americas last year was actually really good. I enjoyed that race.
Yeah, yeah.
Not only because Hamilton won, but there was some decent battles going on, wheel to wheel stuff as well. I think Alonso pulled off a cracking move around the outside of, I think it was Raikkonen.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was Raikkonen around.
Oh, you
else.
mean coming out of turn 1? Yeah, I think it was Raikkonen and
Yes.
Hulkenberg, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, Raikkonen and Hulkenberg. I think that ended up being one of the top 3 passes of the year, according to Sky Sports.
Oh no, it was Perez.
Oh, it was?
I'm pretty sure it was Perez.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I'm pretty sure it was a Sauber.
But yeah, that was coming out of turn 1, going down the hill, turn 2 into the S section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw one or two of those. I think, who was it? Someone managed to pull it off. Was it Bottas on Ricciardo?
This year?
I think. Managed to do it. Yeah, one of them did it around the outside through turn 2 this year.
Yeah, I remember someone doing it. I don't 100% remember who though.
Yeah, Button went wheel to wheel with someone, but got forced off wide. I think it was Button going around the outside of someone.
And then I think on the last lap, Vern and Gutierrez had a bit of a coming together as well.
Yes, they did.
And actually, I think Vern was penalized for that. I was looking.
Was he?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, yeah, Vern finished 12th, 20 seconds added to race time for causing a collision.
Ooh,
yeah, I haven't watched the full-on replays and everything, but yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, I think there were some parts of the Circuit of the Americas race this year that were better. Certainly some parts that were worse. I think there's improvements to be made though, and I think the reception from America was pretty much the same, and that's a big part that a lot of people were talking about. Like, the first year it went great, just like all first races are, but it really depends what happens the second year.
Yeah, I think I heard on the coverage is something like an average of 4,000 expected, lower than last year. But even still, actually watching a race, you noticed all the grandstands were near enough full.
Oh yeah.
And obviously as much space was taken as well. All the RVs down the back straight, like you mentioned, and yeah, it's good. It's nice to see that obviously America and kind of trying to embrace F1 a little bit more. So obviously they stick to their NASCAR and their IndyCar.
Yeah, I think
and all that sort of thing.
I think the intelligent Americans are into F1. I don't mean to sound like pompous or anything like that, but I think people that actually sit down and look at the compare them side by side. There's no question Formula One is 100 times better than NASCAR. I made that decision at a pretty young age, and I think other people in the country are starting to, make that decision as well. And I think also the movie Rush helped as well. There's just a lot of stuff that's happening Formula One wise in America the past year, basically, since last year's race. And it's really helping, and it's really a market that they need to break into as well. I think Mexico as well. Mexico is a country that, maybe 10 years ago you would not want to have a race there, but they're really getting their stuff together and everything. And I think that's a market that they need, especially if they're going to have 2 Mexican drivers on the grid again next year. There's a lot of money to be made in America and Mexico.
I actually thought there was a track in Mexico. They used to have a race in Mexico years back. Probably like I
can't remember the name now.
A couple of decades or something.
It looks like a really nice track, actually. It's very flowing, lots of S sections, left then right kind of deal. Kind of like Maggots Beckett's or Suzuka or Coda. But I think a little bit longer corners. But yeah, it's provisional for the calendar next year. I think they said it wasn't going to be ready for next year, but especially with how successful it's been in America, I think that proves them. And actually, a lot of one of the genius parts about having the race in Austin, Texas, is that it's really close to the Mexican border. So a large population of the people that came to see the race today were from Mexico, actually.
Yeah, that's always good to see.
All right. Well, I think that is going to wrap it up for this episode of Box§Cast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Join us next week where we'll be discussing, of course, the Brazilian Grand Prix, last race of the season. And thank you, Yorkie, for filling in for Miko and joining us for this episode.
Not a problem. It was actually really, really fun. I wouldn't mind coming back
Absolutely.
again in the future. It was really cool.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll have you on for future episodes. All right. Thanks for everyone for
Awesome.
watching. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.